Welcome to the Moulding Health Show. Our goal is to leverage the wisdom and experience of healthcare practitioners to set you on a path of self-discovery and healing. These insights, coupled with a multidisciplinary approach to each area of interest, should provide an invaluable resource to everyone looking for a better approach to health. In this episode of the show, we speak to Stacey Fong and Lucy Chirwa about career counseling from a psychologist's perspective. Stacey Fong and Lucy Chirwa, welcome to the show. Welcome on board.
Well, thank you so much, Oliver, for having us here today to chat about career counseling. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Oliver and Shaz. And I'm specifically looking forward to it because I'm with Stacey and I haven't worked alongside her for 2 years now, Stace. So this is like almost like a reunion for the two of us. So I'm quite excited.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. So Stacey is kind of like an honorary member at the moment. Lucy, can we get an intro from you? And I'm kidding. We'll come back to Stacey now as well.
No problem. As introduced, my name is Lucy Chirwa, and I'm a counseling psychologist who has 6 years of experience, particularly in the higher education space. And I've really enjoyed the work that I've done, both from a therapy side as well as a career practitioner side, and working alongside individuals from all walks of life, which is quite interesting, especially with this topic that we're speaking about today, where people assume it's only the young people who need career counseling, but we'll soon hear that career counseling is quite a lifelong process. I am a huge Marvel fan, although I also enjoy DC, so my DC people, don't worry about it, I'm there with you. And I'm an avid reader, and I want to get into working with plants and agricultural volunteering in my spare time at the moment, just from a mental health perspective as well, because with a lot that's been going on with COVID, I think it's just great for people to remember that there are other parts to us that don't necessarily have to just do with the jobs that we do or the things that we struggle with on an everyday basis. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, so I mean, that sounds like amazing. I mean, quite a balanced response as well. I mean, I think you checked all of the boxes. I mean, whenever you said Marvel or superhero stuff, I mean, you're definitely resonating, especially with Shaz. But yeah, amazing stuff. And Stacey, on your side, I know we had you on previously. That's why I said honorary member, obviously, tongue in cheek.
Thanks so much. I think very similar experience to Lucy. My first 4.5, 5 years were also in higher education and also with a focus on therapy as well as the career side of it. And I think what I really loved about that space is being able to balance out, the best hopes in terms of a future, but also talking about the challenges and how we work through those. Not just within that therapeutic space, but also in the career context. How do we then build a fulfilling career? And I think it's something that I've taken through with me into private practice now, which I thoroughly enjoy, and being able to work with, our younger adults, teens, and then also our older individuals who are then making career transitions and actually starting new careers. So that's a really fabulous space to be in at the moment. And then in terms of my likes, I like to be a little more hands-on. I like sewing, knitting, that kind of thing. So I did to spend a lot of time with my gran, trying to learn to do these things. So yeah, that's me in my spare time, but also in the world of work.
That's amazing. I'm again very balanced. I mean, I like that. I mean, I keep asking our team, like, what's your hobbies? And they always give me sometimes these looks, but I think it's so important to have that, like, as in, I know what Shaz, we'll ask Shaz now as well, because I want to ask Shaz, I mean, how did she even get you guys to be on the show? We're always privileged, to have the opportunity, but I love asking Shaz that.
Actually, so Oliver, to get this show set up wasn't too difficult because Stacey and I already had the relationship from the previous show, and we'd actually discussed we would love to do something on career counseling. And Stacey came back and said, she chatted to Lucy and Lucy was keen, so we booked the session in.
Okay. Thanks very much for agreeing to that. And I think obviously, I mean, obviously as more of the content comes out, it definitely helps. But the reason I'm quite excited about this, and I think the last time, Stacey, when you were on, I think we chatted in between the breaks or so about it. But I still think, I mean, there's such a huge gap with career counseling. And I think, I would love, I can't wait to get into the topic, but I do want to tell you this one thing is like in our Moulding Private Practice show, we started asking practitioners this pointed question. Before you were grade 3, people always seem to ask you around, it's normally like at family events, they'll say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And we got some amazing responses. The one was a clinical psychologist, and she said, I wanted to become a rugby player. And I just told her, I would have lost that bet every single time, if you asked me to, to guess what that is. So yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a space for career counseling, and I would love to start unpacking that. What exactly is it? Maybe just start there.
Okay, so I think, in terms of starting, it would be, helpful to really look at, the words that are associated with career counseling. And I think, we see a lot of words being used interchangeably, like career or vocational guidance or advice or development and that kind of thing. So, recently we read an article by Hershey and Frodever. I am most likely pronouncing that wrong. And it was published in 2019. And the two authors talk about these two approaches to this process that coexist within a career counseling practice. And the first one is then the guidance or the guidance part of it, right, which is more of a traditional view. And so the practitioner then will do an intake interview with the client. They may then do an assessment or assessment battery. So a whole lot of assessments, which may include some kind of ability assessment, interest, personality, sometimes values or a career development questionnaire. And based on those outcomes, then the practitioners sort of suggest career areas that this person could then pursue. The other approach is the counseling approach. This is more of a contemporary or modern take on it, right? So here we look at Rozier's and Savicker's work, where we might be looking at career construction, or Savicker's work on life design, in that paradigm, which is more of a collaborative process between the client and practitioner, where we're looking for, okay, so how do we create a more subjectively meaningful way in terms of understanding our identity and our career, and really encouraging that introspection and self-reflection in helping that client to build a meaningful career going forward and really create that career satisfaction for themselves in relation to their life story. And so both approaches then have a number of factors that might influence the career counseling process. And here we're looking at, the stage of life that the individual might be in, the interests, the abilities, the values, personality, the background that they come from, and even the circumstances that they might be coming from, right? So it's about exploring these different components and how that impacts the decision-making process in creating a career. And I'm also just thinking, this process sometimes might also incorporate actually locating resources together and finding information together, learning skills about how to make these decisions for our future, but also in life, because this is a lifelong process and journey, like Lucy mentioned earlier. And it's this constant process of decision making as the individual evolves through their life stages. All right. And also keeping in mind that situations might change, or there might be something that comes along in our timeline and completely kind of changes things for us in the way we think. And our career moves along that as well. And I'm not sure if you'd like me to get into it here in terms of some of the topics we might discuss in career counseling.
100%. Go for it.
Okay, so here some of the topics we might look at is, the educational commitment required for various careers. So, for example, a medical doctor, you would then have to go through that whole process, right? And not really kind of pause here or pause there and then like go another route. Well, you can go another route, but there is a specific route to becoming a medical doctor. There's no kind of two ways about it. And then also looking at maybe potential earnings and also looking at our networks in terms of doing informational interviews and finding out what the career or job looks like for that person on a daily basis. What is the working environment like? Is it suited to you? And also if there's opportunities for advancement in that career. And then I'm also thinking in terms of, are there possibilities for promotion as well in that space? and can you move along a certain trajectory, or is there ways to kind of zigzag on that career path? So I'd say, overall, in terms of the goal of career counseling, it's being able to explore all of these components with the client in creating a fulfilling career, and really also looking at how to discuss the way forward in terms of then career planning. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Stacey. That sounds amazing. And Lucy, on your side, I mean, what? And then I mean, like almost everyone would say it's important, right? But asking the critical question, I mean, why is it important? I mean, can you take us through something like that?
Mm. When I looked at that question, there's almost this temptation to have a one-size-fits-all answer. And in all honesty, the why would depend on where someone is in their life. So, for example, if a learner is in high school, grade 9 career counseling will look completely different to grade 10, 11, which will also look completely different to matric. University career counseling will look absolutely different. So if I can just go through them slightly, grade 9 is that I've always had like a love-hate relationship with the subject choice, aspect of education, because in grade 9, you don't really know much. You hardly know yourself. You hardly know whether or not what subjects to take. And if you do, sometimes your environment encourages you or threatens you, depends on how you look at it, because sometimes parentals can also be like, you're not taking home economics over science, for example. Your environment encourages you which subjects you should or shouldn't take. And at that stage, if we use the medical example for, sometimes students don't know, or learners rather don't know, that they would whether they need to take maths or maths literacy, and how important that might be for them to do particular careers going forward. And it's not to say that they might absolutely become a doctor or go into the science field, but you want them to have a well-rounded subject choice, in order for them to have options to get into when they pick particular careers that they want to focus in. Grade 10 and 11, same thing. The fact that learners actually have the choice to leave school from grade 9, I think is quite interesting. And they could leave before they get their matric certificate. And even though they have that choice, a lot of companies, should you go through the traditional way of doing work and not necessarily becoming an entrepreneur, for example, or becoming an influencer, as these young people are now with, our social media platforms that we have, a lot of companies now want you to have the basic of having that matric certificate. So even though the option is there for them to leave much earlier than matric, it doesn't really match necessarily going into the world of work, depending on what it is that they want to do. And in university, there are a lot of reasons why students drop out of university. One of them, about 50 to 60% of students actually leave university because they chose the wrong course. So they didn't know what their options were, or I want to study, not education, accounting, but what's the difference between becoming a CA or a taxation practitioner or an auditor? I'm doing a diploma. Will the diploma get me into being a CA? They don't know that it takes about 7 years for a lot of these professions to become professional, to be honest. And I'm a little embarrassed at this because I thought I had enough information, but I only found out at the end of my third year that I actually needed to get a master's in order to become a psychologist. And I kind of had information out there, but not really. The information is better now, I think, for more professional careers going into, so people have the information to make informed decisions. But a lot of students don't know that it takes quite a long time to specialize in particular careers that they would like to follow. And then you've got those who are post-school, whether it's I'm now entering the world of work, as Stacey said, what does the trajectory look like there? I'm an adult now. I should know what decisions to make when it comes to my career, but you just might need a bit of help, and there's nothing wrong with contacting a career practitioner and asking those questions. And if I could just add on to what Stacey said, the misconception a lot of the times with being a career practitioner is that we've got all the answers, we're the expert. But all we can do is actually walk alongside a client, and they're the expert in their lives. They know what their context is like. Sometimes we've got to, in a country like South Africa, with our unemployment rate at 35.3%, if I remember correctly, people come to us to say, I just need to find a job. What job can I do? Versus, oh, I need to build a career and, become a CEO, become a manager, etc. And we've got to respect that. We've got to respect where people come from in order for us to provide them with information, skills, and resources that meet them where they are, as opposed to filling their heads with following your dream, because that's a big thing. Follow your dream, but maybe their current circumstances doesn't allow them to do that. So I know that was a big answer, but I think why it's important depends on where a particular client is in life, and there isn't a one answer fits all to answer that particular question.
Lucy, that's exactly why I put the question in there, because it isn't a one answer fits all. And I really do agree with you about that subject choice thing. So I know that subject choice in South Africa is grade 9. I was educated up in Zim, and at the end of Form 1, we were already making subject choices to what we were going to do for your careers. And I'm not being funny, at 14, 15, 16, you don't know what you want to be. So it becomes really important there. And even the guidance counselor even if they sit in, they go, okay, well, this is where you fit personality-wise. And you always get that graph of these would be the ideal careers to go into. Now, if I'd followed that graph, I wouldn't be where I am today but you go and choose subjects based on what this is potentially on your personality, the line of work you should go into. Now, I do not have the patience to be an accountant, and I definitely don't have the patience to be, so it just didn't fit. But then I agree with you later, coming into matric, you're now choosing to go into university, and you're looking at what do I want to study further. And again, most people in matric don't know what they want to be. So, you're sitting there going, I want to be a doctor. And we've heard this how many times in our Moulding private practice show. Somebody will say, they went in and they started studying physiotherapy, then they walked past the OT department and they changed their major. Or somebody we know that were going in, they were adamant, we're going to go into law, and they walked past the psychology department and was like, nope, that's for me. So I think career counselling from that aspect is very important, and it carries on throughout your life. I don't think it stops at any point. Like you said, Lucy, it depends on your circumstance. So my next question is a little bit pointed, and either one of you can take it, but what do you think is the right age for somebody to start looking at career counselling?
Okay, so it's me. So I'm thinking in terms of right age, maybe grade 9 is a nice place to start in terms of exposing the learner or the client to different kinds of careers out there. And there's fun activities that you can do with them in terms of a career card sort, where they're looking through different cards in terms of the actual career, what they might do, and they're able then to put them in piles of, I really like this, or I don't like this, or this is a fantasy career, I'm not sure if I have the skill, and have conversations around that, which is really fun, and make this process something that's quite interesting and not necessarily just this is it, go do this, right? So it's one of those processes where you're also encouraging and empowering that young person to really get interested in doing Google searches and guiding that process and walking alongside them in terms of, oh, I found this on Google or the GoStudy.net website, and let's talk about it. And I saw, maybe I can study this at, the University of the Free State, or there's a TVET college I can go to. So I think grade 9 is a really nice place to start in getting that exposure and then kind of moving from there. Yeah. Luce, I don't know if you also might have something to add there.
I don't know if it wouldn't necessarily be career counseling. So officially and professionally, career counseling, yes, at grade 9, I absolutely agree with Stacey, or slightly even earlier. But I would even encourage parents, guardians, siblings, whoever is around children, just watch what it is that they enjoy, and see if you can't expose them to specific things. One of my favorite YouTube channels, they've changed the name now, but it used to be called New Father Chronicles. And this little girl was obsessed with cranes, you know, those big yellow cranes. And her dad bought her the little hat, the little crane, the jacket. They watched a whole lot of information on that. And it's not to say she was going to be one of the crane drivers, but it was really nice to see him being interested in the things that, you know, a lot of parents are still very much fixated on what traditional and non-traditional roles for their children should be. And I just say, just expose your kids as much as you can. I know in some schools, or this possibly more private schools than public schools, where you have a career day and people come through to the schools from particular professions and actually talk to the children, just to get them to understand what is available for them out there, and not just looking in their immediate circle with regards to careers that are available. Again, with the young individuals today, who would have thought that you could go on TikTok and make money from making videos, from making a 30-second video, and being an influencer in that aspect. But if it's, again, if your environment in terms of family doesn't see it as something that they think is worthy of doing, or it doesn't fit into their status, or what are our neighbors and other family members going to say, all of that needs to be taken into consideration when wanting to provide advice or guidance, or walk alongside an individual when it comes to career counseling. So definitely agree with what Stacey says. I just want our listeners to also think about what is happening right now in your environment with your learners, with your kids, and what is it that you can expose them to that is way outside the box, so that they don't have to feel forced into following traditional types of work, such as your laws and your engineerings and your accountings. And there's nothing wrong with that. If they want to follow that route, that's great, but help them understand why they're following that route. And it's not because there's this necessary pressure from family in order to do that.
Yeah, I love the answers, and I love the content, and you know, as you were speaking, I realized what a complicated topic this is, because you know, like, even when we talk about age, you know, like, yeah, what is the right age? I mean, because I don't know, like, in my gut, I don't think it's, you know, like, you know, it should start at grade 9, and maybe not, as you know, as Shaz said, you know, early on. But you know, what I liked about the conversation is, like, you're almost like, you need to start thinking about, you know, what do they like, you know, what do they not like, you know, like, is this a numbers type person, is it not? And I think Lucy, you mentioned it, and I want to go back to that. But you know, it's almost like, because you said, you know, because they come to you and, you know, they expect you to have the answers, but you don't. You know, I tell our kids this as well. It's like, even with their body, you know, we don't know if their tummy is aching. You know, we don't know that. They need to know that, you know. So there's almost this discussion around having a personal awareness, or a social awareness, or whatever you want to call that. So they need to almost like know themselves firstly. And I wonder if there's, you know, there's space for helping people to do that, because I don't think many people do. I don't know if you guys agree with me or don't, but you know, people don't really know what's going on with them, and that's why, you know, the space for psychologists at the moment. So there seems to be a space around that. And also, I mean, like, it's a big commitment. You know, we're talking about someone's lives and livelihoods. You know, we know so many people that are in the wrong jobs, and then, you know, then they have mental health issues, and they're having all of these other things. And then you get the fortunate stories, you know, where they actually, you know, like Shaz wanted to become a attorney in the Marine Corps, you know, and yeah, she's definitely not that. But, you know, it's like, you're kind of like lucky or fortunate if you kind of end up on a path that you enjoy. I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Because the one would be, for me, is that whole, I mean, how do you instill in children, what do they want to do, or what do they like, or something like that? And yes, we can go down the testing route maybe, but is there something around that? And then the second one is around almost teaching them on creating value, because I don't know if you noticed this as well, but I find, like, definitely in a work setting, it's very outcome based. You know, like, no one, you know, like, yes, I mean, we could talk about mental health and stuff like that, but normally in a work setting, it's about how do you produce, like, how do you create value, how do you come up with an outcome? And I wonder if there's a space, you know, where we can talk about that. Do you guys have any thoughts around that? Maybe starting with Lucy first because she started it.
It's me. So in the getting to know question, because as a practitioner who's worked in a higher education institution with young adults, the assumption is that these young adults have gone through schooling, gone through what it is they need to get to in order to get to this point in life. But a lot of them just don't know who they are. They don't know where to begin. They don't know, if you ask them, what are your simple thing, like what's your favorite color? They either don't know or they pick that color based on a best friend or the influence that they have from outside of them, but they don't have an answer for themselves. So I would say for younger children, maybe they could ask a trusted member in their life, whether it's a friend, a family, a teacher, to just ask them what things about me have you noticed that I'm really good at, or what have you noticed about me that what strengths do I have? What areas of development do I have? These questions, and then you can ask them for examples. So they shouldn't just say to you, you're really good at singing, but every time you entered a singing competition, you ended up on wooden mic, for example, right? So you're asking them to provide you with feedback, but you also have examples for the feedback that they're giving you. So you can actually sit with yourself and decide whether you agree or disagree with the information that is being provided, and help you be an autonomous individual in trying to make those decisions for yourself without there being some kind of consequence around what it is that you've chosen. Because a lot of the times, the reason people don't know themselves is they think they will be punished for talking about specific interests that are different to, again, what the environment might like. And that can be such a big, it's quite unfortunate. It reminds me of the growth mindset book that I read by Dr. Carol Dweck, in this idea that you're either, a lot of us are raised into fixed mindsetters versus growth mindsetters. And fixed mindset people have a really hard time understanding that if they fail, it's not an indicative of themselves as individuals, but that is just a skill that you haven't developed as yet. So develop it enough in order to figure out what it is that you like, what it is that you don't like. If I think of my own life and the kind of careers I always stopped and changed from, the big theme for me was always helping. It was always about helping people. And I actually only made the decision to get into psychology in matric when a friend of mine actually said to me, you're really great at not only listening, but you actually are able to make sense of what it is that people say. Have you thought of psychology? And that was a career I'd never looked into. I was like, psychology? What is this? And I was really interested after that. And I just lapped it all up and I did the research that I needed to do. And then I got to, I was about to say grade 3. I got to third year and it was like, no, sorry, you need to do a master's. Then you get your master's, like, no, you need to actually write a board exam. Why are you making me jump through all these hoops? I just want to help people. That's it. Right. So in terms of people getting to know who they are, go to something like therapy if it is difficult for you. Have a professional with a good ear listen, or a coach, just to listen to some of the themes that you have, to speak the themes back to you and see if you can agree or disagree with the information that's being spoken back to you. And if not, what are some of the roadblocks in your life that stop you from having to express yourself in a particular way, whether it's, again, environment, whether it's your own belief and mindset, is it your ability, like what is it? Is it finances? Is it lack of networking? Is it resources? What are the things that are roadblocks for you, and how can we push past those roadblocks so that you are able to, in an interview, when someone says, tell me about yourself, you can answer that question without passing out. Because a lot of our young people that we speak to, even adults actually, they're like, oh my gosh, what do you mean? What about me? What are you talking about? So yeah, before we get to the value aspect, Stacey, I don't know if you want to add on in terms of how does one get to know themselves enough?
I'm thinking, even at a younger age, little toddlers, right? And even when they grow up, it's 5, 6, always, what do you want to be when you grow up? And, I saw a post on LinkedIn the other day in terms of saying, what problems is it that you want to solve in the world? So maybe it's a different way of approaching it, but also just maybe as a parent or an aunt or, a caregiver, watching how that child actually solves a problem. So is it a more creative way? So they're building the blocks, but the blocks aren't exactly straight, right? And I think sometimes we want to then sort of dive in and say, no, but it needs to be this way. But maybe if we allow them to actually create and solve this problem in the way that they want to, um, we also then can facilitate how they solve problems going forward and getting to know themselves, right? Um, and then it takes away from that traditional, okay, it's this. They then, I think, already in their mind are able to realize, okay, there's other stuff or other ways I can solve this problem, which is quite nice. And so we might see someone who's a little toddler who's creating something that's a little more artistic, and then sort of fostering that. Okay, so how do we get toys that are, like Lucy said earlier, that are more catered to this, as opposed to then getting actual Lego blocks. Maybe we can get like circles or something and put them in the air, and just make it a little more fun in terms of then that learning and opening the mind up to different kinds of ways of solving problems, as opposed to telling the kiddies what needs to happen. So they can teach us something.
I think what you both said, and that's nice, is and because at school now they have life orientation, and I always found those, I don't know if it's changed too much, but it was almost like one of those subjects that you didn't take quite seriously. It's like yes, it's like, because we had them in school as well, and I think what you said is so profound, because you need to have the right people in those subjects, in order to almost induce change or see change. Or I think, Lucy, you mentioned like a coach, which I love that concept, almost like coaching the person through, or the little one through, because you do need to know that. And when Chaz was talking also about you put people put you in these boxes, and normally those boxes are based on academics. I don't know if that's changed as well, but normally it's like, okay, you're actually not good at maths, although you love puzzles, because I put those in the same box, because maths is about puzzles, and seeing patterns. But because you're not good at maths, like obviously you can't be one of those technical people, so you have to do fine arts or something. So I think that's the one thing, like with our kids. I mean, when Kiara was little, she was 4, she would always say she wanted to be a rock star, she wanted to be a professional swimmer, and she wanted to be a dentist, because obviously not obviously, she spent a lot of time at the dentist. She kind of like, and we told her, like, you can't be all 3, you have to choose one. And she's like, no, I want to be all 3. Obviously, she's now a teenager, she's changed her mind completely, and she doesn't know what she wants to do completely. Our little boy, 2 years ago, he said he wanted to be a pizza delivery man, because he loved pizza, and like, that's the best guy ever. and now he wants to be a farmer. And so I mean, the point is that it's so varied. And how do you like look at that? But I'm hearing you, and I'm taking that, and I'm saying, okay, what are the similarities? What is the insights I can pull from that to be able to help them? We had another guest on actually this week. He's actually a client. He started this addiction recovery center. Very cool guy. His name is Ryan Barnard, and he said when he was 13, he was sitting at the dinner table, and he tells his dad he wants to be a journalist, and he wants to study journalism. His dad's like, not a chance. That doesn't pay. You will do something in IT engineering. And he's like, no, I won't. I'm doing journalism. So his dad chased him around the table with a plate, to obviously get him to change his mind. So I think there's those extremes, but I love, like how you said, in terms of insight, and stuff like that. But it's quite a challenging thing, though. I mean, it's and earlier we were talking about, like, I think Stacey mentioned the potential to earn, and Lucy, you mentioned this a few times, like not understanding how psychology works, how long. So when my wife as well, she fully qualified and she got her first job, and you look at the paycheck and it's like, what? Like after like 8 years of study, is that it? And I think that's such a crucial one. So I mean, my question is, how do you guys keep up to this, up to date with this stuff, from a career fields point of view? I mean, do you have like buckets as well that you always upskilled with?
Do you want to start, Liz, where you've upskilled? Okay. In terms of me, upskilling. So in my mornings, I wake up, and for me, it's really about going through LinkedIn, also, reading business tech articles, and really looking at the different kind of job ads that are out there, and reading about job descriptions. And if I have seen a client and I have them in mind, and they were looking, around what is the potential salary starting out in a certain space, looking at pay scale and thinking, okay, what generally could this person be expecting to earn? And then I think for me it's also around talking to people that I bump into, or family members, like, oh wait, you do this, tell me more about it. So it's also about tapping into my network. And then also, the sort of the continuing professional development points C use, it's also then doing courses and webinars around that as well. So I think that's kind of my go-to at the moment. Yeah.
I like that, actually. I mean, that's quite a research orientated, approach to it. Because I mean, I know both of those resources, and I agree with that. I think I was looking at the UK recently, and they have another one. It's called the Reeds Market Comparative Study, and I thought that's a good one as well. So you can kind of see, like, all of the jobs, what is the almost like the lowest and the highest, that you can look at. Lucy, on your side,
Oh,
how do you?
thanks.
No problem. Lucy, on your side, how do you keep up to date with the career fields? Because it's changing. I
Same.
think you mentioned influencer, and somewhere I saw they said don't ask your parents because your parents have the wrong context. Like almost think for yourself because they're going to tell you what they know. But an influencer, who would have thought? I mean, that's the thing, eh?
Same with Stacey, and we also belong to organizations such as SECTA, which is the South African Career Development Association, and they constantly are trying to ensure that we are kept up to date with the changing world of careers. They had what was it last year, Stacey? Like the word has left my mind now. I forgot it's an everyday word. I hate it when this happens.
Like a seminar.
Thank you, friend. Like a seminar. They had a seminar last year, which was online, which is really great. And I was so excited actually when Mark Savikas was actually one of the guests. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the guy we studied about. He's still alive and he's here. This is so cool. So stuff like that. And what I love about what Stacey just said is that utilizing our networks, because we're not in specific careers and organizations. So why not ask the people who are in those organizations? And we give the same advice to our clients in that, please go through and speak to your networks. And sometimes they're like, oh, I don't know any business people. You might not, but who do your parents know and who can they put you in touch with? You've got a neighbor, go and ask for sugar or provide sugar and say, by the way, what is it that you do? Your friends at school or colleagues at school or peers at school, speak to them. So who's in your immediate circle? Because I know someone who knows someone who knows somebody who can help provide the information that you need. Same with looking for work. A lot of the time, work is found in what's called the hidden job market, which is 80% of, if we're looking for work, 20% is reliant on your CVs and applying, but 80%, which is getting to know people. Who is it that you know, who knows about you and knows that you've been developing yourself in a particular way and can actually say, hey, Stacey, Shaz does ABCD and I've worked with them on this particular, project. Could you have a look at their CV? And because Stacey trusts me and she knows that I wouldn't just provide her with information of people who aren't working or working according to the values that she also believes in, Stacey will give Shaz a chance. So half the time, it's not just about going out and reading things, but who is it that you could speak to that's in your immediate circle? The guy who sells at the corner of the street that you might not think has information about people that they know. Car guards talk to the most interesting people all the time. Who could they, put you in contact with? This person comes here every Tuesday to cut their hair. I know that sounds a little stalkerish, but you need to do what you need to do sometimes in order to get, particular type of information in order to get ready for a career, but also a meaningful career that will fulfill your life and provide you with growth, and you don't feel stagnant in that particular job that you're in.
Yeah, I love what both of you said about networking. And it was something that my dad said to me way back. I was still probably just finishing the trick. He said to me, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And I spent a lot of years working in bars, and you start sitting there and going, okay, well, the only experience I have is bartending. Then you realize, actually, this guy's a CEO and that guy runs 2 separate companies and just by knowing these people, and they're able to watch your work ethic, it's a step in the right direction. But it's also, for me, working in the bar was more anything of just trying to gain knowledge around me outside of what the standard family career trajectory was. I mean, all 4 of my cousins, it didn't matter what they wanted to be. When they finished matric, you're going to go and do a BCom business marketing. Clock, punt, doesn't matter. Now, the ones in real estate, the ones in IT, but all of them got the same degree, because with that, you've got a solid footing. And they all had to wind up going for career counselling, going, I don't want to be a cog in middle management in some corporate company, but this is what my qualification gives me. And I think that's where career counselling comes in, is even if you have been placed in that peg, in that box, it's actually being able to go to somebody and say, I'm in this box, but actually I want to go play in the sandpit over there. How do I get from here to there? Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, so I want to make it also actionable. So I think, as Stacey, on your side, because I think what we established is anyone can probably need career counseling, right? So whether you're an adult or you in school at the moment, or maybe even at varsity, how would someone go about this? And I think you guys are very fortunate in terms of being in the space for quite some time. So I would love to keep it actionable. So anyone listening to this and say, okay, so the one thing I would love them to do is obviously look you guys up, on your websites or whatever resources we have for you, and your contact details, and say, I actually liked what Lucy said there, or I liked what Stacey said. I would like to know more. But barring that, is there anything that you could almost say to someone that's kind of stuck right now and they said, I think, after listening to this episode, I think I do need help. Where would they start? So maybe Stacey, on your side?
That's a great start in terms of acknowledging, maybe I need someone else to kind of talk to about this. And so from my side, I'd say, do a nice Google search, or, on the platform here, look for the practitioner that you think is a good fit for you. All right, that you think that you can build a nice relationship with in having these conversations, and reach out, right? So whether that's, in terms of email, or, I'm quite open to receiving WhatsApp. So, WhatsApp me, let's have a little conversation. And I typically like to also have an initial chat, so just to get to know the person in terms of what is it that I can assist with. And maybe I might not be the best fit, and actually Lucy might be a better fit. And then saying to this client, I think Lucy has this experience, maybe contact her, right? So it's also taking that initial step and actually making, typing a message or picking up the phone, typing an email. Yeah, so I think that's the first step.
And Lucy, on your side?
I'm thinking of a few organizations. One is the National Career Advice Portal, and I can provide this information in terms of let me just quickly look at their number here. So their number is
in the contact details. Yeah,
sure, 086 999 0123. And what's cool about NCAP for short, is you can also SMS them on 072-204-5056, so that if you don't have enough airtime, they will call you back. And you can actually also go onto their website and do quite a few things onto their website, such as answering questionnaires. There's a really nice glossary of different careers from A to Z. So, you could look at different careers based on a particular alphabet, where and what to study, that kind of information is provided. The Knowledge Trust also has a WhatsApp number, which is 084-030-9432. And what I love about the Knowledge Trust is last year, they actually launched the very first ever WhatsApp Career Expo. So once you save this number and you type in the name Expo into WhatsApp, it's an AI, basically. You register for it and you can do nano courses. There are particular institutions that are involved. They give you information on what bursaries are available, where you can study, etc. Open days, I'm really sad that open days at particular institutions are not, even before COVID, it seemed like they started decreasing, which makes me really sad, because I loved going to open days. Firstly, it was a great reason to get out of the house on a Saturday when I was expected to clean and do many things. I'd be like, I need to go to Wits or UJ or wherever it was. But, go to institutions and actually say, I'm going to spend some time going to each faculty and asking for brochures or asking if I can speak to somebody so that I can get information on what is particularly available. Job shadowing, we've touched a little bit on. If you are able to job shadow with parents or family or friends, whoever it is that you can speak to, just see if they can. Again, with COVID, it is a little bit different because of how many people can or cannot be in particular spaces. But I think if you plan it out, then they can plan for you to come through and see what it is that people do. For example, a lot of people want to get into medicine, but they don't know what the day-to-day life of medicine looks like. It might not be what you see on TV of ER carts rushing in with people in a gunshot wound and whatnot. It might be filling out forms for like 6 hours a day, and no one really thinks about the administrative aspect of that. So job shadowing would be another thing. And definitely for those in school, speak to your lecturers and your teachers, network with them. Your lecturers and your teachers are also a really great source of information when it comes to where to start. They might also know you enough to say, you're saying you want to go into BCom, the CA route, but I actually see you going in this direction. Because that's another challenge. Once they finish studying and they see that they want to go into a particular profession, what do I study in postgrad? And the only way to know that is to get to ask people around you and get to know yourself a little bit better. And ask, speak to an older honors student or, a master's student and say, hey, do you mind if I do an informational interview with you? What are the pros and cons of this program so that I can make that decision for myself? So there are quite a lot of, Google is your friend, but Google can also make you feel overwhelmed. So, reach out to a professional or call some of these numbers and organizations that I have. And these, I'm sure these are just a small number of what institutions are actually out there doing a lot of the work.
Thanks, Lucy. That was very, very actionable and amazing. And I think, we'll get the details and we'll definitely put it in the show notes as well so that anyone can, look at it if they didn't take that down. But I do want to end off with two questions, and it's, it's pretty, it's pretty broad. And I would almost like, I respect you guys as professionals helping, many people in the, find their way. And the first one is around, and I think it was one of the practitioners, it was Tasneem Abrahams that mentioned this the first time. And it's a Japanese philosophy around, I think she called it ikigai or so. And so firstly, you have to know, what you're good at. And the second one is like, what do you love doing? And then the third one is like, what will people pay you for? And the last one is, will it make a world a better place? And if you can find almost the intersection of that, that's your happy spot, right? And I think the question is like, so the one part is, helping everyone to get to the space where they actually doing what they love doing and everything like that. But I'm always surprised that, like, even as a country, we don't put enough emphasis on the skills that we actually need, in the industry. And I mean, I'm using IT as a good example. I mean, we import skills at the moment. There's countries that almost just churn out, a lot of IT professionals. And, in South Africa, we still have like such a shortage. So the question is, I mean, do you think there's almost like another level where we almost need to be directing people into careers rather than, and I'm not saying that from an autocratic, you have to do this or else, but rather almost like looking at their skills and saying, actually, you are good at design, but did you know that the computer gaming or the gaming industry is a massive industry? You could use your skills in design, in creativity, in the computer industry for gaming. Do you think there's a space for that, Lucy?
There definitely is. It's just unfortunate. So if, for example, if I wanted to do a seminar at a school, the biggest issue a lot of the times is we don't have the added time in terms of the curricula that's being set out and the tests that learners and students have to write, etc. Because I do believe that exposure is a big part of why people don't know about these particular careers, and that's why they get trapped in these traditional roles that they need to fit into. But if we were able to somehow, I mean, this would be a dream of mine to have some kind of seminar and have different people, fine if it's IT, but it's not the traditional IT, like you're saying, it's like the gaming. If it's, finance, it's a different type of finance, et cetera, so that people have got exposure to these kinds of experiences. Addition to that, though, I think we also need to take again into consideration context in South Africa. It would be nice for people to follow their dream. It would be wonderful for people to get into careers that they really want to explore. But at the end of the day, a lot of them also just want to get jobs. Like if I had a qualification, but I've been home for 3 years and someone offers me a particular job, 9 times out of 10, I will take that job because I've been at home for such a long time, feeling despondent. I need to make money. I need to take care of my family. And maybe later on, I will be able to get into the field that I studied. And in cases like that, I always advise, our young people or people in general, maybe start off volunteering or start off, getting into spaces where you can teach the subject that you learn, to still get experience in the thing that you study, that you want to follow, whilst you're building up the skill set that you've got, so that it's not just about, oh, I graduated and then 3 years later I'm unemployed and here I finally get a job and I'm working at as a cashier at Mr. Price. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying be strategic about, again, networking your way into spaces where maybe you end up being a cashier in an engineering company, and then you meet the director of that company and say, listen, I've been working as a cashier for this long. I'm really good at ABC. These are my volunteering experiences and the hours that I've worked in. I would really like the opportunity to possibly engage in a graduate program or a learnership or an internship in order to actually, make sure that my skills are being built on, because I really do enjoy this thing that I'm doing. So definitely exposure, and definitely if you're not able to do it in the job itself, what extracurricular activities are you getting involved in to ensure that you're still active in that space of interest, so that if your job is quote unquote boring, then at least you can get fulfillment, because sometimes your work won't give you the fulfillment that you need, unfortunately. So where else can you get that kind of fulfillment?
I like that. And Stacey, on your side?
I think I'm just quickly going to get back to the details in terms of, actionable things. There's also Career Explorer, which is a WhatsApp group as well. It's a career helpline as well. So we'll also send you those, which is quite nice. And that's, I think, hosted by Brainwave Careers as well. And they have some lovely resources for some young people. So I was thinking also in terms of what Lucy just said, it's and what you said, Oliver, in terms of, do we then guide young minds into these professions where there's a lack in South Africa? And I think it's around also the career counselling process is in actually teaching that young person how to do the research, how to keep up to date with trends happening in South Africa, being able to source, maybe the Department of DHET's, list of careers that are like trending now in South Africa, and for them to do that research and decide for themselves if this is a place they want to go into, as opposed to us, filtering them through, okay, these are the things that are trending, right? I think it's a more empowering process for them to then do that research and then, keep the trends going. So I think it would be um, from our side to really then encourage that skill of how to then keep up to date of what's happening. Um, and then also, I think in terms of, the job shadowing and career expos, unfortunately not happening as much as we used to. I think maybe having a virtual coffee chat with someone is also really nice, and having a list of informational interview questions that you could ask. And, if that person is in the office that day, they could, move their screen around and kind of show you, this is what my office looks like and this is what I do. So that's also a really nice way to do it, is to have that virtual coffee as well.
With doing many molding private practice shows as well, and speaking to healthcare practitioners, how they got started, lots of them said, it was this guide or this person that actually helped me. And I think, coming back to my social awareness or personal awareness and creating value part is, I think maybe that's a skill we should be empowering youngsters with as well, is actually sometimes you need to drive these things, you need to set up and I think most people won't say no. I mean, even if it was Adrian Gore, I would venture to say, if someone put the right pitch to him and said, can I please get 10 minutes of your time? I think if it got to him, using some of Lucy's tactics of car guards and stuff like that, I'm sure, he would not say no. I mean, I can't see that happening. I think, that's just how, people are wired in terms of helping. And my last question, I think, and we're going to wrap up soon. We'll ask Shaz for last thoughts as well. In the last few years, there seems to be a lot of sentiment around, should you get a degree, should you not? I'm an academic at heart. I mean, I love that whole process. And for me, if I had to answer that question, and I'm going to ask you guys as well, because I think that's part of the issue. It's like, we've got people, and I think Lucy said this just now, where I think maybe we're in this mindset that you just have to get a degree. Doesn't matter what degree, you just go get a degree. And the first employee we had, he got his BSc honors in genetic engineering. And obviously we didn't hire him for that. We hired him for programming, or software development. But he changed careers, because he couldn't find a job. Like, I don't know, he's now in Canada, but doing computer or software development. But it was one of those stories. So someone told him, actually, just follow your dreams and just go get a degree. And you're quite smart, you can do this thing. And then he sits at home. His wife has, he couldn't find a job. Which is what Lucy said, for 3 years or so, some people just have a degree. So my question is, should you get a degree? So for me, what a degree teaches, it teaches you that tenacity of just finishing some things. The other thing that a degree teaches for me, deadlines. Like, either you're there at 9 o'clock on that Friday morning and you're writing your examination, or you're not. Like, there's no, if you don't write it, you're here next year. The other thing is also how to get things done. Sometimes they don't tell you, actually, you need to do module 1, and then you have to do module 1A, and then 1A, and then you can do this. And there's something about that, like figuring out life thing. And I think the last thing is what you guys just kind of showed is there's a sense of, like, you can find people, people that probably would be with you for life as colleagues and friends. Yeah. So your thoughts? Stacey, maybe?
I'm going to be honest, that actually went straight over my head because I was like, this is a hard one, right? Um, and I absolutely agree with you, Oliver. I think it's also the way we've been trained in terms of our mindsets is, yeah, get the degree, there's this linear process. And I do believe, like you're saying, it does teach us very valuable transferable skills that we can use in the world of work, like time management and being able to meet those deadlines and that kind of thing. But we're also starting to see a trend in our first world countries where you don't necessarily have to get a degree, right? You can study or just get experience in the field by doing some kind of volunteering or learnership, and then upskilling maybe through short courses here and there and that kind of thing. So and people are getting jobs that way in first world countries. But I'm thinking in the South African context, we're still very traditional and conventional in that way, is get a degree so you can get a job and then move forward. So I think it's a hard one to answer, and I can't say yes, get a degree, or no, don't get a degree. But, but also, like earlier Lucy mentioned, is really nurturing that growth mindset, and being open to any kind of detours that come along our way, and how we can then kind of zigzag through that, as opposed to just having this linear view. So I'm thinking, yeah, let's open the mind up to different possibilities, I guess.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you one more question then, because if you had to do it differently, would you still get your degrees?
Absolutely. So, I mean, if I think of my own process, growing up, I wanted to be a teacher, and my sister wanted to be a garbage man, a truck driver who collected garbage on the side of the road, because she loved that every Friday. Woo! Right. And I wanted to be teacher, and I would, do little things on the wall as a teacher, right? And that theme ran through in terms of helping and teaching skills. But I mean, I had no clue what I wanted to do in high school. So I mean, I landed up in the tourism industry, and then I landed up as a debtors and creditors, and I did a whole lot of things and had no idea. And I wish I had like a Lucy to help me, because at the age of 23, or did I only decide, okay, wait, maybe I want to do something, that's meaningful for me. And then that's where I also did a career assessment. I spoke to family members, friends, like, what do you think I'm good at? I really don't know. And I mean, that kind of led me here. So I would definitely do it again, but it's because I had to go through 6 years of not knowing what I wanted to do. So it would have been nice to start studying earlier than I did. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm asking that question, I'm going to get Lucy's thoughts now as well, is that I think there's definitely a space for like that whole intergenerational wealth, and it's almost like what we pass down to the next generation. We almost like guide them in a way that, and sometimes it's saying, actually, I did that, but please, I'm not saying don't do it, but these are the reasons I did that and it didn't work out. Or these are the reasons, I faffed around for a few years and I didn't go get my degree. But if I had to do it differently, I would do it like this. Those are the almost like the stories that the elders used to tell us, or through generations. That almost like that part, and I think as a society, we're almost like losing some of that. And I would like to almost like see like how do we pass that on and say, actually, you do want to do this, but maybe do it slightly different. Your thoughts, Lucy, on the degree stuff?
Yeah, same with Stace. It is a hard question to answer. And I think in South Africa, there is very much with companies, they want that qualification. So as much as, we can say not necessarily, if you apply for a job, one of the things they want to see is that qualification, and to make sure that you're not a fraudster, as many stories we've seen in the news of people saying they have particular qualifications to be in a position and they don't. But at the same time, I would maybe encourage, people to, when studying, try and find either institutions or organizations that merge both the theoretical component of what you're doing as well as the practical aspect. And unfortunately, I wish all qualifications did this, specifically for areas such as your humanities, because humanities can be very theoretical in what it is that they're doing, and there's not much practical component attached to that. So if the institution isn't able to provide that, find places, your organizations, where you can somehow engage with the material that you're learning. And I agree with you. Everyone I talked to, I remember when I was doing virtual coffee chats in my former place of work, whenever you asked about qualifications for a lot of them, they were like, yeah, I went to varsity, or I went to college mainly for life, to learn life skills, but not necessarily because they felt like what they studied and what they're actually doing, there was a mismatch between the two. So it would be nice if there was a practical component, to the theory that we're doing. And like Stacey, and I think, I found out when we started working, we went to the same high school and we met in the workspace. And I also wanted to be a teacher. She and I are both firstborn, so we were always teaching our younger siblings. So I think that aspect again, always, and I love teaching. And that's why whenever I look for a job, I always, wonder, is there a facilitation aspect to what I can do so that I can actually fulfill that part of what it is that I want to do. And would I do the same? Yes. My family was like, you're going to do biotechnology. And I did for like 1.5 years. And then I was like, screw this. I don't want to do this actually. And I went into psychology, and especially for, people, my people, in terms of people of color. Why do you want to talk to people about your problems? But we need to talk to people. Sometimes family can't fix what it is that you do. So it's where I am is a privilege for me. I really enjoy what it is that I do. And I think, starting when I started was the right time to start. I think I would have crashed and burned if I went straight from high school into psychology, because it's such a big responsibility to try and assist people and help them reach their full potential. So, yeah.
I love that. I think the world needs more people like yourselves, like Stacey and Lucy, and to help us. I mean, I think there's definitely a space for more psychologists. I think so. Like whoever controls the big bodies, I mean, if they could almost like say, we need more psychologists or registered counselors at least to start off with, to help society get better. Maybe that's what we should be doing. And this is more, my hat on it. But let's close up. I love this conversation, and I think, as with every single episode we have, I think we could probably go on for another hour. But I think let's close up. I think it's enough to almost like get us started on the conversation. That's what we want to say and do. And I think Lucy said, Google is not your friend. We completely agree, because sometimes you don't know what you're looking for. But hopefully someone is looking for career counseling comes across this episode, with Lucy and Stacey, and say, okay, I like what I heard there. And then, goes down that rabbit hole. Would be amazing. Shaz, on your side, anything? So my last thing is there anything around this topic that you think I should have asked you and that we didn't? And then we'll close up with that. Shaz, on your side?
It's such a huge topic, and I think we've covered a lot of tangible aspects of what people need to be considering when they're thinking about going into careers. I think the most important thing we've covered is both Lucy and Stacey have said the same thing, is go out there, do your research, speak to people, network with the people that you know. And if you can't find anybody there, then reach out to a professional for that assistance. Because I'll never forget it. Somebody said to me, I was just before I finished matric, is remember this, you go to school, you study hard, you go to college, you get a job. And nobody tells you that that's what you're going to do for the next 40 years. And we're no longer in that mindset anymore. But we need to be in a position where kids need to know, if you decide you're going to be a lawyer and you go through, chances are you're going to be a lawyer for 40 years, unless you find a professional who goes, you're really good at this, but we're leading you more towards this direction. I think it's a really nice opening space for people thinking about career counselling. So thank you, ladies, both very much.
Lucy, on your side, anything that you think we should have asked you that we didn't around this topic?
I think we've covered quite a lot of what it is that we're speaking about. I think the one thing though, and I don't know if it fully goes into career counseling, but I think mental health in the workspace itself specifically, and what that looks like. I think that's what I would, because sometimes you can't separate the career from the personal. So how does one sort of figure out how one feeds into the other? And should you be coming to a career counselor, actually going to another psychologist for therapy, but the two processes are working together to try and make sure that you are a high functioning individual within that space. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. And Stacey, lastly?
I think for me, it's just to kind of leave off with, career counseling is also just a snapshot of that individual at that moment in their lives. So whatever outcomes or findings happen, they're not indefinite, right? So they're not definite. So you can always change it and sort of reevaluate what's happening in your life, what matters, what doesn't matter anymore. So yeah, I think it's also about being adaptable and flexible to who you are becoming and also the environment around you. And just to build on what Shaz said, that 40 hours equates to 36,000 hours of your life. So I think it's important to build a satisfying career. And if you do land up in law and decide you don't love it, some individuals have then indicated that some people change careers about 3 times in their lives. So it's okay if you started out as a lawyer and then moved into a scuba diver instructor, right? So it's the way the world is working in terms of careers these days, which is really, really cool.
Okay, amazing. Thanks for what you do. Thanks for all of the great work. Thanks for agreeing to be on the show. This was amazing.
And thanks for
Thank you
having
for
us.
having
It was a really cool chat. Yeah, it was an awesome chat.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. As always, stay tuned and we'll speak to you in the next episode.